Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today we're tackling a topic I know is close to a lot of your hearts, building better communities for the future. And when I say building, I don't just mean slapping up new buildings, right? We're talking about creating communities that are both livable right now and sustainable for, well, forever, ideally. That's a
Okay.
pretty big ask. So we're diving into chapter 13 of making connections to see what insights we can unearth. What do you think? Are we up to the challenge?
Absolutely. It's a challenge a lot of us are thinking about, especially with cities growing so quickly these days. And you're right, it's more nuanced than just putting up new buildings. We've got to find that sweet spot between keeping the economy humming, protecting the environment, and making sure everyone benefits. It's all connected, like pieces of a puzzle.
And the book does a really interesting job of highlighting just how interconnected it all is by comparing urban growth here in Canada with what's happening in other parts of the world.
Yeah.
Like, did you know that over 80% of Canadians are already living in urban areas?
It's a staggering statistic when you think about it. And it highlights a key distinction: urbanization versus urban growth. Canada's urbanization rate, the percentage of people in cities, has actually plateaued. But our cities are still growing rapidly in terms of sheer numbers, especially places like Toronto and Vancouver. It's a trend we see mirrored around the world.
And the book mentions Shenzhen, China, as a really powerful example of this. Apparently, you're just a small village back in the late 70s, and now it's this megacity home to over 15 million people. Can you even imagine the growing pains? It's like the city grew up overnight.
It really underscores the complexities of urban planning on a massive scale. Shenzhen's transformation was incredibly fast-paced, fueled by economic reforms and a surge in foreign investment. But that kind of rapid development inevitably leads to challenges, everything from environmental concerns to social disparities.
Right, because it's not just about building up, it's about building sustainably and equitably. So even though Canada isn't experiencing that same explosive growth, are we still facing similar challenges, just on a different scale?
We are, and Chapter 13 calls them out pretty clearly. The three E's: economic, environmental, and equity issues, all intertwined, of course.
It's like one giant game of dominoes. You knock one down and it sets off a chain reaction.
Exactly. Think about urban sprawl for a second. As cities stretch outwards, eating up farmland, housing prices skyrocket, and more people are forced into their cars for longer commutes. That's an economic hit, an environmental burden, and potentially a recipe for social inequity all baked into one.
And let's not forget about that farmland disappearing under concrete. That local food source, gone. That's a huge concern for a lot of people, and for good reason.
Absolutely. And it all circles back to how we approach urban planning and development. How do we balance economic growth with the needs of the environment and the well-being of all residents? Those are the questions we need to be grappling with.
So how do we even begin to untangle this web of interconnected challenges? The book brings up greenbelts as a potential piece of the puzzle.
They're a really interesting concept. Essentially, you're creating a protective buffer zone around a city to prevent urban sprawl from gobbling up valuable green spaces and farmland.
It's like putting a fence around those areas and saying, you shall not pass.
Exactly. And what makes greenbelts so effective is that they offer a multi-pronged solution. They protect ecosystems, provide much-needed recreational space, and can even help mitigate the urban heat island effect, which is becoming a bigger concern with climate change.
Right. It's not just about pretty views. Speaking of which, the book mentions the Greater Golden Horseshoe Greenbelt in Ontario as a good example. It's pretty remarkable, a huge swath of protected land right next to a major urban center like Toronto. Have you seen any tangible benefits from that project?
Oh, absolutely. The impact has been significant. For one thing, it's helped protect a vital source of local food production by preventing urban development from swallowing up farmland. Plus, it's become a haven for people looking to escape the city with hiking trails, campsites, that sort of thing.
It makes you wonder why more cities aren't jumping on the Greenbelt bandwagon. What are some of the hurdles? I imagine it's not always easy to convince developers to hit the brakes.
You've hit the nail on the head. Retrofitting greenbelts into existing urban areas can be a bit like fitting a square peg into a round hole. It takes a lot of careful planning, community buy-in, and some tough decisions about land use and zoning.
Right, because you've got to balance those competing interests, protecting those natural spaces, while still allowing for some development and economic growth. It's
Yeah.
a delicate dance.
It certainly is. But then you look at success stories like the Greater Golden Horseshoe Greenbelt, and it proves that finding that balance, that win-win for people and the planet, is possible. It's just a matter of mustering the political will and community support.
And speaking of finding that balance, We can't talk about creating sustainable cities without talking about everyone's favorite topic, transportation. Let's be honest, traffic is the bane of most people's existence, right?
It's the elephant in the room for sure, and it's a prime example of where innovative solutions are sorely needed.
And Making Connections talks about this idea of 20-minute neighborhoods. Have you heard about this? It really caught my eye.
It's a pretty radical concept when you think about it. Imagine living in a community where everything you need, shops, schools, parks, workplaces, is within a 20-minute walk or bike ride from your front door. It would completely change the way we live and interact with our cities.
It sounds idyllic, almost like a throwback to a simpler time. But can we realistically pull that off in our modern, sprawling cities? I mean, have you ever tried to walk across Toronto? It takes a while.
It's a huge challenge, for sure, but not necessarily impossible. It requires a fundamental shift in the way we think about urban design. We've been so focused on designing cities for cars that we've forgotten about people. We need to flip that script and prioritize walkability, cycling infrastructure, and efficient, reliable public transportation.
So it's about creating communities that are actually designed for humans, not just vehicles. And I imagine that would have a ripple effect on other aspects of city living as well.
Absolutely. When people can walk or bike to their destinations, it fosters a sense of community. They're more likely to bump into their neighbors, support local businesses, and feel connected to their surroundings. It's a win-win.
It seems so obvious when you put it like that. But we often overlook those simple solutions, don't we?
We do, and it often comes down to a lack of political will or a resistance to change. But the benefits of creating more human-centered urban environments are undeniable.
And the book actually highlights an initiative here in Canada that's trying to do just that, the Big Move in southern Ontario.
That's a great example of a region taking a long-term strategic approach to transportation planning. They're really trying to move the needle on this issue.
For those of us who haven't memorized every transportation plan in Canada, can you give us a quick rundown of what the Big Move is all about?
Sure. It's essentially a long-term plan to transform transportation in the Greater Toronto and Hamilton area. Instead of just focusing on building more highways, which we know just leads to more congestion in the long run, they're investing heavily in public transit, cycling infrastructure, and creating those pedestrian-friendly streetscapes you were talking about.
So they're tackling the problem from multiple angles, looking at the bigger picture, instead of just putting Band-Aids on a broken system. It's about time someone did, frankly.
I agree. It's refreshing to see that kind of forward-thinking approach, and hopefully it's a sign of things to come in other parts of the country.
It's great to hear about these big initiatives, like the Big Move, that are tackling these complex issues head-on. But I'm also wondering, what about us regular folks? What can we do on a day-to-day basis to contribute to creating these better, more livable communities?
That's what it really boils down to, isn't it? It's easy to think that these issues are too big, too complex for us to make a difference. But the reality is that change happens from the ground up. Every single choice we make, no matter how small, has a ripple effect.
So we're not off the hook just because we're not city planners or politicians. It's about taking responsibility for our own impact.
Precisely. Imagine if everyone listening to this right now committed to walking or cycling for those short trips instead of automatically hopping in the car. The collective impact on traffic and air quality would be huge.
It's about breaking those habits, those automatic responses we have. And it's not just about transportation, is it? It's about supporting our local businesses, being mindful of our consumption habits, all of those little things that add up.
Absolutely. Where you spend your money matters. Choose to support businesses that align with your values, whether it's a local farmer's market or a company with a strong commitment to sustainability.
Right. It's about putting our money where our mouth is, so to speak. And sometimes it means pushing ourselves outside our comfort zones a bit. Like, have you ever been to a city council meeting? They can be a bit intimidating. But that's where a lot of these decisions that affect our communities are being made.
It's about making our voices heard, letting our elected officials know what matters to us. Change rarely happens in a vacuum. It requires engagement and a willingness to participate in the process.
This deep dive has been a real eye-opener for me. I've gone from feeling a bit overwhelmed by the sheer scale of these challenges to feeling, well, a glimmer of hope. Maybe we can actually create these better communities one step at a time.
That's the spirit. It's not about finding all the answers overnight. It's about recognizing that we all have a role to play in shaping the future of our cities and towns.
Absolutely. And on that note, I want to thank you, and I want to thank all of you for joining us on this deep dive into building better communities. We hope you found it informative, thought-provoking, and maybe even a little bit inspiring. Remember, even small actions can make a big difference. So what will you do today to build a better community? Thanks for listening.